Hey everyone, welcome to week 4. So sorry again about all of the nonsense with Blackboard. Myself and another facilitator ran into a whole host of problems with it. It's been a mess. They did a big Blackboard update like, I don't know, a month ago or something like that, and apparently it destroyed it. I don't know. I can't even, it was so frustrating, I can't even describe. So, but it is fixed now, thank goodness. And I've spoken with several of you and verified that you can see your scores and your feedback. So we should be good to go from this point forward. I do again want to thank you for your patience. And again, I recognize none of this, of course, was your fault whatsoever. So I didn't penalize anybody for turning in stuff late, for taking advantage of the extensions, for not applying feedback from previous weeks because you couldn't see it. So I get it. I get it. And trust me, nobody's grade suffered for that. So you got what I think are fair and reasonable grades based on the work that you did, not based at all on system issues or anything like that. So I think we got it squared away. Your discussion grades for week 3 are done. I will be posting your grades for the letter to the mayor probably this evening. We'll see. If not, definitely tomorrow. And then we're totally caught up. So I think everything's good to go on the grade front. Thanks again. So let's talk about the simulation. As you know, for this week, there's no discussion. There's no readings. The all hands on deck for the simulation. So I've gotten several questions about the sim, and I will address all of them here. That was in part why I delayed the video, so that I made sure I gathered people's initial questions and I could knock them all out in one fell swoop. So as you know, I'll rehash some things that I mentioned in my week 1 video now. It's a series of stage gate decisions. There's about 7 of them, and you'll be presented with various project data, documentation that you have to read, charts, graphs, raw data that you have to sort of digest and process. And based on your understanding of the data and the project and the information you're given, you need to make decisions at various key points. And your decisions will then affect the subsequent outcomes of the project, just as it does in real life. So after you run the sim, and we'll double back on that in a second as to how you do it, but after you run the sim at the end, you will get a scorecard. And I want to clear this up immediately, first and foremost. Many students ask, what's the best way through the sim? Am I going to get feedback? What if I get a 78? How do I get a 100? How do I get an A on the scorecard? These are all very valid questions, and I get it, but I want to put you at ease. Your grade on this assignment is not, I repeat, is not based on the numerical score that you get in the simulation scorecard. Your grade for this assignment is based on your lessons learned write up and your peer evaluation form. I do look at your scorecards because I want to make sure that you did it, and I'm interested to know your numerical scores, but let's say again you get a 78 on the scorecard for the sim. That does not mean you get a 78 or a C on the assignment. If your group collaborates and cooperates very well and you write a very good lessons learned paper and your peer evaluation forms are strong and thorough, you can all get really high A's. You could all get 98s on the thing. So don't worry so much about the numerical score that the simulation gives you. Worry more about the lessons learned document and filling out the peer evaluation form. So now, doubling back to how do we run the sim? So several of you have asked me, how do we do this? What's the best way? I can only tell you what my students have done in the past because there is no one right way to run the sim. Some people, option A, is each of you in the group runs it individually, asynchronously, and you all huddle at the end. So 4 people or 3 people in my group, each of us runs it. We don't talk really very much, if at all, while we're running the sim. And then after everybody's done, everybody's got a scorecard. We huddle together via phone, via email, Skype, whatever, Zoom, and you talk about in your lessons learned what each of you learned and where your decision points were different. You compare scores, you compare decisions, and you talk about that. That is one pathway. It's not my favorite because it's not especially collaborative. Basically, everybody just did their own thing while the process or the project was taking place, and then you're sort of like stitching something together at the end. I understand sometimes it's necessary. I'm just saying it's not my favorite. What I would prefer would be, say, option B or option C. Option B is each of you runs it up to a stage gate decision. And then you have a quick 5 to 10 minute Zoom call, text, Skype, email, something where you all agree how you're going to move forward at that stage gate. And you all enter the same decision in your simulations. So, in other words, I'm in my group. We've all processed the data. We have a quick call and we say, okay, this is what I think we should do. What do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? And you all say, okay, based on our conversation, let's all hit this button. And so you all make that decision and then you move forward. So, in that respect, you should all have identical scorecards at the end. And the lessons learned document is how was that collaborative process at each stage gate? Did you run into a lot of conflict? Did you all tend to agree, and on how to move forward? How did you resolve conflict? To me, that's much more interesting, and that reflects much more in real life how we do projects. So that would be my personal preference if you can swing it. Option C is you all sit in real time in your jammies with pizza and wine and beverages, and you actually run the simulation synchronously in real time together. It's happened. Um, Logistically, I think that's very complicated. But if you all live in time zones and have schedules that work, I've had groups do this. They sit on a phone or on a Zoom or on a Skype for like 2.5 hours, 3 hours, whatever, and they run the first four or so stage gates. Um, they talk, they get to know each other, it's casual, and then they have a second call the next day or 2 days later, and they finish it. It's been done. So I would say option B is probably the most popular, but I wanted to share the full range of options that I've seen so that you as a group can strategize how you want to do it. Again, there's no right way. I don't care how you do it, just get it done and get it done well. My personal preference, I would say, is probably B, but again, in the end, my preference doesn't really matter. So do what works for your group. That's the key. Okay, so just a few more things. There's no specific length requirement for the lessons learned. I need you to use your best judgment at this point in your coursework about what you think that is. And I think you know that a 2 page lesson learned document for this is not going to cut it, but I don't need like 20 pages and 16,000 sources. So, use your best judgment. Don't forget again about the peer evaluation form. I want to circle back on that. So, as a group, you're going to submit the lessons learned paper through the portal. So, all of you will be graded on that lessons learned document collectively, which means you will have to decide as a group how you're going to write it. Are you going to break up different sections? Is there going to be one primary editor who's going to stitch everybody's different parts together? How are you going to collaborate on a document? That's a big challenge of this. And again, a very real life struggle that we face in project management all the time when we are so often in virtual teams. So it's real. So you'll have to tackle that with the lessons learned document. The peer evaluation form is a way to help me help you, to give you the fairest, most equitable grade. It's happened, unfortunately, in the past where sometimes one group member doesn't pull their weight. They didn't show up to the conference calls, they were 15 minutes late, they were late with their part of the paper. Their part of the paper wasn't really good quality, yada, yada, yada. And the other group members use the peer evaluation form to objectively, but realistically tell me what the deal was and say, look, this person didn't pull their weight. And it's not fair. And I agree with you. So in that case, I can actually tailor everybody's grades within the group to reward people who go above and beyond and to penalize who don't collaborate well and who don't pull their weight. So it's to your best advantage to be as thorough and as detailed as possible in those peer evaluation forms, especially if somebody really went above and beyond or somebody really did not cut the mustard. So don't just send me a form that's like 555 and absolutely no comments. Please use the comments field. Use it liberally to give me insight into your collaborative process and to be honest with me. You will all submit your peer evaluation forms individually, so I will be the only one who will see them. Your other group members will not see them. So don't worry about, being honest. Do. It's in your best interest. And I think that's it. I know there's a lot to do with the sim. I think, though, in and of itself, the sim is straightforward. Sometimes logging into the system or, system issues make it challenging to get in to the sim, but the actual sim itself is pretty good quality and it's pretty straightforward. So I'm sure once you get in and you run it, you'll be fine as a group. Just don't skimp on the strategy. My personal advice would be to try and touch base if you haven't already with your other group members ASAP, like today, tonight, or tomorrow, and strategize how you're going to tackle the sim and write the paper. And then use the weekend to actually run the sim and run the paper and write the paper. But at least try and get your head in the game today or tomorrow about how you're going to tackle it as a group. And I think once you have that decision made, then you just need to execute and you'll be in good shape. Let me know if you have any questions.